Hey everyone, welcome to my newish podcast where I explore my spiritual journey. We have the pleasure of speaking with Tanys Coughlan. Coughlan, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. She is a intuitive healer. She does more than just that, but that's as much as I can remember because my memory is terrible. So how you doing, Tanys?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. At least I got the first portion down, so I'm
You did
happy about
awesome.
that.
You did awesome.
um, I think it would be interesting to touch on how you and I met because as of now, we haven't met in real life yet.
No, no.
We have a friend in common. Crew Mel. Will Mel is a Muay Thai instructor that I've known for years, and over the past 2 or 3 years, he's taken a very different approach to his life. He went from being a Muay Thai instructor to be a more of a spiritual guide, I think we could call it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think he goes by Clarity Coach.
Clarity coach,
Um,
absolutely. You're absolutely right.
yeah, but with a spiritual spin.
It's always the portion that needs to be clarified is the spiritual aspect of things.
Mhm.
And the first episode of this podcast, I was kind of shy. I didn't know if I should release it or not. So I sent it to Crew Mel, and Mel sent it to you. And that's how we first talked, was your interpretation or your feeling or however you want to call it regarding a weird French guy talking to himself in a microphone. Do you
It was
remember what
awesome.
you thought? Do you remember what you thought?
Um, I was applauding you for your authenticity,
Hmm.
in being really open and self-reflective, which to me speaks to a lot to the healing journey, right? For me, when we're doing spiritual healing or energetic healing, a lot of it is about that self-reflection and getting to know the self. That's what healing is about, right? It's about saying, oh, pulling this out and going, huh, yeah, so that doesn't feel all that good. And we were talking before about how we like let it be and
Yeah,
then let
yeah.
it go kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yep,
that's
yep.
kind of that concept, right? You sort of pull an emotion out or you pull an experience out and you look at it and you go, huh, okay, that doesn't feel very good. And then you allow yourself to experience that emotion or that feeling that goes along with it, and then you release it. So you're the first time I heard you speak was in that, and it was very much about that. It was very much about that self-reflection and being very in touch with what was happening and asking the questions, which impressed me because I'm like, okay, this is a guy who wants to find out about himself. He wants to be self-reflective, you know, and we are all on different places in our journey, you know, along the way. And so we can't judge each other by where we're at or what's going on in our lives or anything. The only thing is, are we still growing? And that is what we do. Our whole life purpose here is about learning the lessons along the road. And part of that learning the lessons is actually diving in to what you're feeling and how is that affecting what I'm doing and how do I, and that's all about self-reflection. So my impression when I received your your snip because it was all on the, I didn't have video with it or anything. It was
Oh,
just the audio part. It was okay. This guy's like in tune with what he with his journey. Like he's delving in. So yeah, that's what I thought.
it's
Like,
hard. I gotta say, it's that was recorded at like 6 o'clock in the morning. I was up from midnight. I wrote it down. I recorded it when I should have been sleeping, but I couldn't sleep. Something was telling me I needed to put it to paper and record it. So um, the thing I find interesting though is I've done a lot of introspection in my life, and I'm up to a point that all that's left are the very, very, very big pieces of me that really defines what I think I am. Like all of the low stuff has been dealt with a long time ago, but the big portion of trying to accept what I am and changing it, I don't know that is an option, is just, as you said, to live with it. There's things, live with my emotion, live with the way that I am. And it's hard to explain, but it feels like all I have left are what makes me me.
Yeah, so there's a piece there that I would invite you to look at, and that is that it's about accepting you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not judging you.
Yep.
So the piece that makes you you is what part of what makes us all beautiful, is the piece that makes us us, right? And we all have the shadow and the light within us. We have the shadow side, which are the pieces that are a little bit more harder to accept about ourselves, or those things that we've done that we kind of look at afterwards and go, geez, that maybe wasn't such a good idea. And
I've
how do
had
we
those
not?
moments before.
We've all had them. We've all
Yeah.
had them, right? We are all human. That's what we're here for, right? We have a situation come up and we have to look at it, and it brings to mind the thing about trying to make decisions in your life from a place of love instead of from a place of fear, right? Because when we make a decision out of fear, it's not really necessarily what our soul or our heart needs us to do. It's about making a decision about what everybody else is going to think of our decision, right? So delving into what your soul needs or what your heart needs right at the moment is rewarding.
To say the least, it is the. I don't know if it's just me, but I've always, as we were saying before we started speaking, and I don't think it was a surprise to you since we've spoken before. I'm a very empathic person. Like I feel pain. I feel, and it's not mine. It belongs to other people, but I feel it. It's something that always I've always had problem. I never until now I'm just starting to figure out what belongs to me and what does not, what I just need to live and let go. But unless you live through all those emotions, good or bad, I know I'll never learn. How um how do you learn to differentiate what belongs to you, what needs to be dealt with, and what is just an outside source affecting my own energy? How do you, is there a trick, is there something that you learn to I don't want to say filter, but kind of know that it's not necessarily something I need to deal with, I just need to live that portion, let it come, let it be, and let it go, right?
Right, right. Yes, so there's a few things. One is really practicing and asking that inside voice, right? Your higher self, that spiritual
Yep.
aspect of self, asking that part of you, what is this when you're faced with it, right? And that's kind of what I was talking about making a decision of love, right? So being those decisions out of love need to be love for self as well as others. But there's the piece about, so I'm an empath too. I'm a physical empath actually, which means I found that out early on in my Reiki practice. I had this gentleman coming to me on a weekly basis because we were trying to get a handle on his pain, in terms of, he had arthritis and he was an athlete when he was younger. So he had arthritis like all over. So he'd come in and he'd get on the bed and I'd start doing work on him and I'd be like, oh my gosh, why is my shoulder so sore? What's going on? And then I'd finish the session, it'd be gone and I was fine. And inevitably after the session, he'd be like, my shoulder's so much better. Thank you. And I'd be like, huh, okay. So this went on for quite a few weeks in between. And I ended up calling my Reiki master. I'm like, okay, what is this? What can I do? What do I need to do for this? And she said, oh, honey, you're a physical empath. So you're not only just picking up on their emotional stuff, but you're picking up on the physical energies in the room as well. And so, and that's part of clairsentience, right? So when we look at your intuitive abilities, most people have heard of clairvoyance, right? Which is clear seeing. There's also like clairaudience, clear hearing, clairgustance, which is clear tasting, clairsentience, clear feeling, claircognizance, clear knowing. And so, and I always call it clairsniffient, clairaureliance, smell. Sniffiant is not the official name. But, so when you tap into those, right, we all have our strengths in those areas because everybody has intuition. Everybody does.
Yeah.
We just don't tap into it and we don't think of it that way. And we talk about it in different terms, right? If you're in business, you're often talking about it in terms of your gut feeling.
Yeah.
Because we have brain cells in our stomach, in our heart, and in our brain. And the stomach gets the messages first. They get the stimuli first. And so your stomach reacts first, and that's why it's a gut reaction. But your gut reaction is also your intuition, picking up on these external stimuli, reacting on your energy field, right? And so when we talk about that, like, so a good way to look at it is all of these things can be all around you in a different vibrational frequency that's out of what our usual frequency range is. So if you think about a dog whistle, okay, our hearing range is here. The dog whistle is up here. So we don't hear the dog whistle because it's not in our hearing range. But if someone was to be using a dog whistle constantly, like you'd get really agitated and you wouldn't know why, because it's always happening, like it's a constant thing, but it's a high vibration, so it's not in our usual range. So that's what happens with a lot of the other stuff that's around us, right? We have stimuli coming at us from like it's the same thing for visual things, right? When you talk about somebody being a medium or somebody being clairvoyant, if they're seeing stuff out there, then it's because it's just in a higher vibrational frequency, so you don't know it. It's not in your awareness. So like you can kind of see this in everyday life. When you could walk into a room, you could walk into the same room for 10 years. And all of a sudden you see this thing that's sitting on the shelf and you're like, where did that come from? You know, and the person, your partner or whatever might say, well, that's been there for 10 years. Oh my God, I never noticed it before. All of a sudden it's in your awareness, right? And so basically when you start to raise your vibration, which is what a lot of the world is doing right now, right? We're stuck in this high vibration field that's coming up. So as you start to raise your vibration, you're basically doing this with your visual, as well as your emotions, as well as your hearing ranges. All of those get affected as you do this. You're increasing your awareness on the planet and how you interact with the planet. And so as we do that, we start to feel all these other feelings around us. So the other aspect of that is that we are all connected. I am going to give you a hint on this, but it's the preamble. So we are all connected. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands kind of how it all works, right? Because I'm a teacher at heart, so it's kind of what comes through. So we're all connected with energy to this like grid that goes around the earth. So this is like the collective energy. They talk about it being the collective consciousness, right? So when we have something going on like what we have right now with all of the upheaval in the world, that collective consciousness gets really heavy because there's a lot of fear. Yep. So when we talk about emotions and the vibration of emotions, fear is a base emotion, right? Whereas love and joy are high vibration emotions. So because there's so much fear in the collective, it feels very heavy. And that's part of what we're picking up on right now. So there's that piece. There's also the aspect that we actually have layers to our energy field, right? So when they talk about seeing the aura actually has layers that are all connected to aspects of self. So if you take your hand and you do this to your hand, you're going to feel like a spongy layer there. Try it. So start up here and then pull it down and stop when you feel slight resistance. You're going to feel a little bit of resistance. You feel it?
That's interesting. Yeah, about right there.
Do
about
this.
An inch away from my hand.
Do this. Just wiggle it a little bit.
That I think they teach you that in Reiki. Huh?
Well, it's a way to feel the energy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is
Okay.
very interesting.
So this is your etheric layer. It's actually like a jelly blueprint. It's what keeps our body in the shape that we're in, right? So that is the physical one. So in Reiki, they teach that if you've got an energy pocket that's a dense pocket that's stuck in that layer, you're going to have a physical symptom.
Mm.
Okay? When that you then have your mental emotional layer, which actually goes out about as far as if you've got your arm stretched out and your hand, that's about as far as that goes. And it's all around you, right? Top and bottom too, into the earth. That's your mental emotional layer. So in Reiki, if you've got a dense pocket in there, then you're likely going to have things like anxiety and depression, right? What people don't often realize, and that's probably about where people feel they see the aura, if people see auras or they sense the aura. What people don't realize is that we actually have a spiritual layer that actually goes out about 500 feet around us. So if we have a 500 feet around us, that means that when you're out in the crowd, or even if you're living in an apartment, you're in somebody else's energy field all the time.
Yeah.
Right? So what we don't realize is that we can actually pull that in if we want to, so that we're not in everybody's energy field. So that's one part that we can do to help us not feel everybody else's stuff, right? So I just want you to try that. So close your eyes and send your senses out about 500 feet, okay? And see what you feel. You're just getting a baseline right now. Okay. Now your mind is an incredibly powerful thing. So what I want you to do now is to pull that energy in with your thoughts. Say, okay, I'm going to pull in my aura. Just have the intention of pulling it in. Pull it into about, 2 feet around you. How does that feel? Do you feel a difference?
I'll have to meditate on that later on, but I can feel it though. I'm a
Yeah. You feel the difference in the density around you, right?
And I can also see it. I can
Yeah.
see it in my head. I'm very good at visualizing stuff in my head, so I think I can see it. I'll
Yeah.
have to sit down later on. I'll go
And give
meditate
that a
and
try.
I'll try that because it happens. You said it well, I try not to let what's going on right now affect me. I try.
Mhm.
I used to be extremely political and very very much so into getting all the news and getting it right now. But for the past few months, I just stopped. I completely stopped. I don't look at that stuff. I don't really want to talk about it anymore. I still am aware of what's going on, but I don't think about it. I try not to let it affect that bubble, if you may.
Mhm.
But it's hard. I think that's a good point, trying to bring it back in, because I tend to feel that other people's emotion, other people's fear. I'll give you an example. Maybe a month ago, there was a big walk in Montreal. So
Mhm.
I've did 3 walks in Montreal over the past 2 months. There was one Saturday, beautiful. It was like a big party. We're more than 150,000 people in the street walking, and forget what the news said, we weren't 1,000 people. I've been in big crowds before. We were at least 100 to 150,000 people, and it was like a big party. I cannot believe that it was a walk against the restrictions. I just wanted to be there to film it, to see what it was like, to catch people's emotion, because again, I feed off of people. Like I can feel it all the time.
Mhm.
And the emotion was beautiful. Beautiful. It was like a big party. I got out of there energized. Like I felt better after than before going. But the one before that was a smaller one and people were scared. I could sense it. Like it felt bad. It did not feel good at all. So I think it's a good trick what you're saying, to just try, if I get something that I don't know where it comes from and it doesn't seem to belong to me, to just visualize and kind of bring that awareness to 2 feet around me instead of letting it go 500 feet.
Mhm. So that's part of it. So the other part we can do is putting a tube around you.
Yeah, we were talking about that before the podcast.
Yeah. So what I want you to do is if you're, because you said you were game to try this, so we'll
Of course,
give this a try.
absolutely.
So I want you to close your eyes, and I'm going to have you, and you're comfortable with talking about angels, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
My girlfriend canalizes them, so it to me, I've heard it, no problems at all. No problem.
Okay, cool. Because I'm going to get you to repeat after this, and there's 4 angels that we're calling it. So
Okay.
basically what it is we're going to have them bring in a big tube of light, and it's just going to come down around you. Okay.
Okay.
So I just want you to close your eyes and see where you're at, get that sort of thing. And if you're feeling a bit too snug with your aura too close, you can ask it to go back to exactly where it's meant to be for you. Because you don't have to have it in for this part. Okay, so just feel where your baseline is. Okay, so now what I want you to do is just repeat after me, please. Archangel Michael.
Archangel Michael.
Archangel Gabriel.
Archangel Gabriel.
Archangel Uriel.
Archangel
Uriel.
was that?
Uriel.
Oh, Uriel, sorry. Archangel Uriel.
And Archangel Raphael.
Archangel Raphael.
If it's appropriate.
If it's appropriate.
For as long as it's appropriate.
For as long as it's appropriate.
Please tube me.
Please tube me.
Okay, so I just want you to feel that tube coming down, or see it, or whatever works for you. I have a feeling you may have both. See what that feels like as it comes in. You're smiling. That's a good sign. How do you feel?
The reason I'm going to explain why I smile.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of I'm able to, through meditation, I've been able to achieve a certain state where I almost feel like I'm radiating heat, and it always starts by me smiling. I don't control it. I just start smiling for a reason, and then afterwards I get into that vibration state where I'm kind of radiating energy, which I always thought it was energy, but I realized not too long ago that it's a state of, have you ever heard about agape love?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the state that I'm able to, I've been getting there every now and then over the past few years. I can simply now know what it is. And I got a feeling that I can get, that's a good thing. I'm going to try that again, because I got a feeling that I could get to that state easily. So that's why I was smiling, because I can sense something go down. I can sense, how could I say, like I'm being snuggled, as that's the best word I can describe, is really like something is just reaching around.
Mm-hmm. So that's a protective tube.
Yeah, it's I got a feeling that if I get to explore that more, it's more of a loving tube.
Absolutely, it's all love. So anything that's coming at you just gets transmuted.
Yeah,
right?
It's
including
I'm gonna have to do that again. I'm so happy I'm recording this, so I know what to do again.
Yeah, it's a great tool. It's been wonderful for me.
So when do you use it? Because you use it consciously, I would imagine, like you're fully aware. You have to use it consciously.
Yeah, I use it twice a day.
Seriously?
Use it in the morning and before you go to bed. Then you're protected.
So it's really a protecting, in order to get protected, that you do it.
Yeah, because protection is about raising your vibration, raising your frequency, and protecting your energy. Right? So if you're bringing in a big tube of light and love are those high vibration stuff. So you're really pulling in this big tube of light to increase your own vibration, but also it helps to send some away and transmute others, depending on what's coming at you. So
Very interesting. I'm gonna have to do that later on
mhm,
after we finish the podcast before bed. I think I'm gonna do that. That's
mhm.
very interesting.
And I redo it if I'm going out into like a mall or grocery store or networking events or whatever. And I find it makes a huge difference because you never know what you're kind of what people are feeling around you, right? So as you walk into those places, it
So
helps.
it's really to kind of shield yourself from, I don't want to say negativity, but from other people's emotion. Because a
Mhm.
lot of it I feel now, even like I live in the country now for the past year, I've been living in the middle of nowhere in a log house, and it helps me tremendously. It's absolutely amazing the effect that it has on my psyche.
Mhm.
And I was in Montreal last weekend, and just seeing everybody walking around with their mask in the middle of the street, they're all scared. You can see that, you can feel that the energy is completely different in a
Yeah,
big city compared to a small town like where I am right now.
yeah.
Can't
And
even
that's
imagine living
right.
in there. I can't imagine people that live in that constant fear and surrounded, like you said, if we assume, and I believe in it, but for anybody that's listening, let's assume that what you're saying is true, that you have a field of 500 feet around you. Imagine that you live in a big condo on the island of Montreal or in Toronto or in Ottawa or wherever you are in the world, and most of the people in that field are scared, live in fear. How the damage that it must have, and especially when you don't even understand what's going on, where that fear is coming from.
Hmm. Well, and that's what's happening with a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Learning how to manage your own energy field is so key in all of this, right? If I had my druthers, I'd have everybody trained on Reiki 1 because it helps you to do your own healing. So it's empowering
Yep.
to figure out how your energy works, and you get this understanding of what energy is and how that works because our minds are incredibly powerful. So I have another thing we can do. This is kind of funny. So I was on a he's like, oh, what am I in for now?
Ah, I'm somebody that lives experiences. I've
Okay, so
learned
you're gonna
that
love this.
I've learned that a long time ago. All that matters in life is the people you meet. You know, the people you meet, the love that you give, and the experiences that you live.
Yep, because all of that is to learn.
Hmm. Agreed.
Awesome.
It's all about knowledge and love. That's all it's
Yep,
about.
absolutely. So I was on when all this pandemic started. I was on a daily thing with a business mentor, and he was having these big people come in and talk to us. And so one of the guys that he had on was Jack Canfield.
Okay.
But Jack Canfield comes on and he's like, okay, so I want you guys to try this. I want to show you how your thoughts are so powerful they can make a huge difference. And so everyone, this is a business thing, right? So
Yeah.
everyone's like, okay,
Sure.
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 And I'm
Sure.
like, okay, cool. So so we get on and he's like, and there's like hundreds of people on this call, right? So you can't see everybody's face. We're just kind of following him. But then he said, okay, so what I want you to do first is I want you to take these lines on your wrists here and I want you to match them up. So do that. Match those up as close as you can. You want them to be as exact as possible. Then I want you to put your hands together. Everybody has one hand that's shorter than the other, so flat so you can tell which one is shorter. Okay. Got it? I want you to take the shorter one and I want you to put it out in front of you like this. Okay. Now I want you to repeat to it 5 times. Grow longer, grow longer, grow longer, grow longer, grow longer. Go
Grow
ahead.
longer, grow longer, grow longer, grow longer, grow longer.
Okay. Now I want you to match up your lines and put your hands together.
Are you going to try to tell me that they should be longer now?
Yeah, it's supposed to be longer. It is longer, I could tell.
Power of the mind, isn't it?
Is it
Uh,
longer? It looks longer from here.
it looks like it, but I don't know. I've never calculated my hands before. I know my left foot is bigger than my left to dig into my right. So maybe I should do that. Would it work with my feet?
You can try it.
I think I'm gonna have to try.
So anyway, with this call,
Yeah.
there were hundreds of people in the chat. Oh my God. Oh my God. All of this, like the chatter was all about all these people that it works. And I've done this so many times.
Yeah.
Everybody has that happen. I've had 2 people, and the 2 people, it's because their inner dialogue was, this isn't going to work. This isn't.
Yeah.
And I also made the mistake of telling them what to expect.
Yeah.
Before. And so they were already like, because when you block yourself, it's not going to happen. But if you allow, it happens because you don't have the blocks. And so that just shows how influential our own thoughts are in creating our life and creating our reality. So if we can change the length of our fingers just by telling it to, look at how powerful we are. We have a lot of energy that we put into things. When we do that, our thoughts, energy flows where our thoughts go. And that's just an example of that.
How do you, because one of the things I've always been careful about is who I speak about my spirituality to.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to keep it for myself. For the longest time, I've kept it for myself. But over the past few months, it seems the more I open up, the more people like you tend to show up in my life somehow. And synchronicity, I guess, because I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in that at all. So synchronicity seems to just show up. How do you explain that to, because one of the things I'm battling with right now is, and that's a question that I asked to a pastor that I'm becoming friends, like I was saying to you before the podcast. um how do you, because one of the things I've noticing is, I'll take my family for example. I haven't seen my family in like a year because my mother lives in fear. She's scared. The whole thing that's happening right now has her scared, and she refuses to see myself and my sister. So I haven't seen her in more than a year probably. And the thing I'm finding hard is that the more it happens, the more I pull away. The more I don't want to surround myself with people that are living in fear, because it seems like no matter what I try to do with them or to talk to them about, it doesn't matter. It always gets back to, I'm not even trying to change their opinions anymore. It's really just to a point where all the conversations we have end up going to a place I don't want to go anymore because it doesn't bring me anything.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about fear, I'm not somebody that's scared. I'm not scared about what's going on right now. It's bigger than me. All I can do is do me. That's it. And do the people around me and be the best person that I can do, that I can be, and love as much as I can. But
And did you know
the
by
rest,
doing that, you are helping the world?
my point exactly. But how do you find it normal? Do you recommend some of your clients to separate themselves from people around them? Because I find it very hard to keep those type of individuals. I'm doing it without even thinking about it. People text me, people message me stuff that I don't want. They send me videos and articles that I don't care. I really don't care anymore about it. And I just ignore the messages. I can't answer anymore. So do you find it normal? Do you find it that it's appropriate behavior, if I can say it that way?
So I would say that to understand what's happening there, if you look at vibrational frequencies,
Yep.
like attracts like.
Yep.
Okay. So when someone is not at the similar frequency, it starts to feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where you get into that, you know, in osmosis, right? You've got
Yep.
that energy shift, or the water shift through osmosis.
Yep.
So it's kind of like that with energy. So if you've got a high vibration and a low vibration, the low vibration raises, which is good, but oftentimes you end up with that imbalance of them draining your energy as they go up.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what you feel. And if you're a physical empath, when somebody comes at you from a real fear space, you feel it physically. Like it makes you feel ick, and I suspect that's part of what's happening for you. So a couple of things. I don't ever recommend, unless the person is very toxic. I would never say to a client that you should cut somebody out of your life. That's not my place. It's not my decision to make. What I would say is practicing moderation. See them when you're feeling strong, not when you're feeling weak. Making sure that you're pulling as much energy in as you can before you see them, and doing the tubing that we talked about. Because there's times when we're going to be involved with people that are not of the same vibration. That's life, right? We can choose to spend more time with the people that are of a similar vibration, because those people, there's a synergy that happens when you have high vibration people together. It's like 1 + 1 = 3, not 2, right? When you have high vibe, because you're boosting each other. And oftentimes higher vibe people, and there's nothing wrong with being low vibe. I don't want anybody thinking that, high vibe is the best. It's not about that. Everybody is on their journey at a certain space, and that's where those people are. That's where they're learning. They're on their journey to be in that space in this lifetime. And that's totally fine, right? So the people that are on the journey to raise their vibration, that's what they contracted in. We have soul contracts. So when we come down, we have contracts to say, okay, so you're going to meet me when we're 4 in the playground, and we're going to learn how to do this. And you're going to meet when we're like 16, we're going to learn about young love. And, so we make contracts with our soul family before we come down. And those contracts extend to how we're going to learn things. And people end up in positions where they're making these decisions based on their contracts. So it's at a total soul level, like a subconscious soul level. So that's why I say if we can take the judgment out of where people are at. So not judging that person for being low vibe, just accepting that that's where they're at, and then making a decision for ourselves about what we want and what we can manage in our own energy. That's what I would recommend. And so there may be some days where you're feeling really awesome. You've done a whole bunch of meditating to raise your vibe, because that raises your vibe by 25 megahertz. So you're feeling awesome and you can manage dealing with somebody. But if you're feeling really low, those are not the times to do that. So that's all about trying to learn how to manage your own energy and deciding what's best for you along the road, right? And where your lives, because sometimes these people are people that come into our lives that are really difficult. They're there for a reason. They're there to add grist for us to learn from. They're there for, I remember I heard somebody use the term sacred friends. Those are the ones that try our patience, or that we have lessons to learn. And oftentimes when people are trying our patience, it's because they're being a mirror to us. They exhibit something that we don't really like in ourselves. And so we're like, what can I learn from this? What do I need to look at inside me? Why is this person triggering this in me? So they can be a real great tool for that self-discovery piece that we were talking about earlier. So I wouldn't necessarily say that you want to cut all negativity out. I just think that managing it in a way that's comfortable for your energy, and learning techniques like the tubing, and that you can pull your energy in when you're there, making sure that you're doing the vibration to top yourself up after, right? So that you're feeling healthy again, doing that kind of thing. That's what I would recommend. I mean, unless it's extremely toxic and abusive, then that's another whole story, right? But if it's that they're in fear, how do you keep that up? And making sure that you give yourself that space to do what you need to do in between your interactions.
I totally agree with you, and that's something I try to keep in mind. The thing is, and that's what has me a bit puzzled, I've been thinking about that a lot recently, is so the people that are low vibe, that don't necessarily bring, I don't want to say anything good to the table, but vibration wise, they tend to bring more negativity than positivity. Why even deal with them in the first place? See, those are the kind of, because I understand, I know myself enough to know how much somebody affects me and I can deal with it,
Mhm.
but I'm becoming more and more in a place where I don't even want to deal with it anymore. Because if I known you for this many years and you still are not ready to, I don't want to say change, but to do a lot of introspection, because all the people that I've met in my life that were negative, they do not meditate, they do not any type of introspection, they don't look at the mirror for who they are. They tend to blame. A victim mentality right there is the first indication that you are not going to be my type of person. You and I will never get along just because you blame others for your problems. You're the problem. I've always been the problem in any situation that was problematic. It was always me. Always me. But how do you not find it, um do you not see it as some, I don't want to say normal because I don't really care what normal is, but is it something that your clients speak to you about when they don't even want to deal with
Hmm.
the people that bring that negativity, because it's just a waste of energy? Literally, it's a waste of energy.
Yes. And that is totally, and I'm not saying that you should interact with these people.
Yep.
All I'm saying is that if you do, or if you
Yeah.
have to, for some reason, because we do still have to live on the 3D, right? And the 3D has these densities built in
Yeah.
of other people, of situations, of, all of that stuff is all built in because that's what our experience is here. That's what it needs to be because we are here to learn, right? We have like a whole checklist. I joke about having a checklist and you go up and you're like, I don't know whether you believe in reincarnation, but I'm like, you have all these soul contracts with people that put you in the best position to learn this big checklist of stuff that we have to learn when we come down. Then we come down and we learn all those things and we cross over and we're like, okay, so then we meet with our guides and we're like, okay, I learned that, I learned that, I learned that. Oh, I didn't learn that, didn't learn that. Oh, okay, back again. So you go back and you make all these soul contracts and you come back down and try again, right? And so we have to put ourselves in those positions to be able to learn the things that we need to learn so we can check them off on that list, right? That's the soul progression part of it. But it doesn't mean that you have to, if you've learned the lesson already,
Yeah.
then you're probably not in a position where you need those people in your life, right? Family's tricky.
Yeah.
Family's tricky, because you don't want to ever have them, you don't want to consciously cut people out of your life and then regret it, because shame and guilt are right down there with fear. They're low vibration emotions. So if you hold on to that because you've cut these people out of your life, then you're doing yourself a disservice by doing it. If you can manage the relationship, manage the energy around it, then you don't have to entangle with those emotions. You can keep the emotions high, right? If you're doing it out of love for self, then that's a different thing. That's about love. But if you can do it for love with yourself and not have the guilt of cutting people out of your life, isn't that better? So,
I don't have the guilt. I'll be honest with you. The guilt is not something, if you're doing it, as you said, out of love for yourself, I don't see a problem with it. I don't feel guilty about it.
that's great. But yes,
It's,
I do get this a lot.
yeah.
When people start your spiritual journey, right? That conscious, I'm raising my vibe going forward sort of thing, that spiritual awakening that we talk about. As you start that journey, there are changes that come into your life. And those changes are meant to come into your life, whether they're people that come in and out, whether they're situations or jobs or all of those things, right? And the difficult times in our lives are times when we're often fighting change, when we're trying to resist change. We talked about earlier, I've had 2 burnouts, and it was because I was resisting what I was being told. I was in high stress management positions in home healthcare, and I was not able to manage my energy very well because I was in a position where I was surrounded by a whole bunch of very dense things. And that's what they call the toxic environment, right? Your toxic workplace. So it was like toxic people that were quite almost abusive, you know, and it really affected the energy. And I'm being a, you know, being an empath and a physical empath, it's not a good place for me. So, you know, what happens? You get put in a position like that, and it's to teach you that, okay, that's maybe not what you need to be doing. And I wasn't following what I was supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be doing the work I'm doing now. So I can do 12-hour days now and I'm fine. Might be a little physically tired, but certainly not stressed in the same way. I did a 12-hour day there. It felt like it was a year, you know, because that's not what I was supposed to be doing. So there was resistance there at a subconscious or soul level that that's not what I was supposed to be doing. And so I ended up really getting burnt out around that in the first management position. So then, you know, I take time off and then I think, okay, I'm going to make this decision out of fear again, not consciously out of fear, but this is what, looking back, I realized. I'm like, okay, so I can't really, you know, I can't like start my own business, and changing careers is too hard. I'm just going to get another job similar. So I get into another job similar, worse. You know, the first day I walked in, the energy in the room was so thick, I needed a chainsaw to cut it. This was my team. So I realized, oh my gosh, what have I done? You know, I've stepped into a storm again. And over the course of the year, I was only there a year. I couldn't do it anymore. And it was just like, you know, notches out of the energy, notches. And then when I ended up leaving there, I was like, okay, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm going to like do the work. I'm going to figure out what it is I need to do. And then I started listening. And then I started my own business, which I never pictured myself doing. You know, I started my HR business because I'm an HR consultant as well. And that was what I thought was expected. It was this is what, you know, it's mainstream. So let's step into the mainstream. So I step into that. Well, it wasn't doing well because I was hiding that part of me, that Reiki piece of me. And it's funny. It's a funny story because I was going to all these networking things and not saying anything about it. And, you know, I would always end up talking to the high vibe person in the room. I'd always end up being attracted to whoever the yoga teacher was, or the spiritualist, or the, you know, all of those, the Wiccan in the room, you know, it was always that I was attracted to the higher vibration people in the room. It was not intended that way. It just happened. And that's what I mean by like attracts like, right? But I wouldn't want to talk about my spiritual side. I was like, no, I can't talk about my spiritual side. You know, I'm that HR person. I have to be business. So that you're hearing the fear in there, right? I'm not wanting to talk about it because it's fear. I was afraid that people would think I was too woo-hoo. So one morning, so I get messages from the guides a lot. I listen to my gut instincts. That's part of that intuitive thing. I wake up one morning really early. I'm not a morning person. So they got me up at like 6 a.m. and there's this whole thing going through my head about spirituality in the workplace. I'm like, you can't talk about spirituality in the workplace. They're like, yes, you can. You can talk about religion in the workplace, but you can talk about spirituality in the workplace. Anyway, it was a big whole thing. They wouldn't leave me alone until I came down and I wrote a whole article about spirituality in the workplace. So I wrote it, saved it, never intended doing anything. I was like, okay, good. It's out of my head. That's why I went back to sleep. I get up and I go out for coffee that afternoon. And I'm like, okay, to a friend who's also spiritual. I don't tell her anything about the morning. And then I'm getting ready to go. And she's like, oh, I have a book for you. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. She hands me The Idiot's Guide to Spirituality in the Workplace.
Nice.
I'm like, seriously? Like we're name calling now? You just told me this morning. So, so I'm like, okay. So then that week I was in part of the Ontario Self-Employment Benefit Program at the time. So we had a business consultant coming to do a site visit. So she arrives and I'm like not saying anything about Reiki, right? I've got my KPI reports, my quality indicators, I got my QuickBooks open. And she comes in, she sits down, she goes, okay, what are you going to do if you're not making enough money by the end of the program? I'm like, oh crap, I'm going to have to tell her about Reiki. Do Reiki? And she's like, perfect. That's your differentiator. Spirituality in the workplace. I was like, so 3 times the message. And that was in less than a week, 5 days. So I was like, okay, what is this telling me? Right. So when I did the soul searching, it's like, okay, I just need to be authentic. You know, the people that want to work with me for HR, they're going to be okay that I do energy healing. They're going to be okay that I do this spiritual stuff. Those are the people I want to work with. The ones that don't, we're not going to vibe anyway, right? And it's going to be uncomfortable. Do I want that in my life? So it brought it up to me to be authentic, to be that, just be who I am. And the people that I want to work with are going to come. Well, once I made that switch, both businesses took off because I wasn't blocking my energy anymore, right? So I talk about being a slow learner because it took me 2 of those management positions to get there. And that whole big long story that I just shared. But, you know, you get there. Just be open to the lessons in the experience, the lessons in other people. Because all of these things that I spoke about, you know, toxic workplace, there were people there. So those people come into your life for a reason, and then you learn from those people. So everybody is valuable. All the people that are in your life are valuable, whether they're sacred friends or difficult friends, or whether they're the easy ones. It's about finding the balance and learning. Learning, is this what I want? And what am I needing to learn from here? And what kind of self-reflection do I need to do about my relationship with this person? What is it that's triggering me? And if we can do that in those situations, then we can manage our energy better. We can decide, okay, yes, I do need to learn from this. So yes, I'm going to do the self-reflection. Yes, I'm going to do the meditation between. Then I'm going to step into it, see how I react. Okay, that's triggering me. Okay, I'm going to come home, do the self-reflection, do the work, step back in. Or choose not to. Choose what you, find out what it is you need to learn and move on. Maybe that's the lesson. It's about not judging ourselves for those kind of decisions too, right? And being comfortable with your decision. So that's about asking, making the decision out of love, rather than making the decision out of fear. So if I had made decisions out of love for myself along that story that I talked about, I probably wouldn't have done the second job, because I knew that that kind of position wasn't right for me, because it was the environment that I was in and the fact that I'm so sensitive, right? But I didn't want to give up. And that's that ego piece. And that was fear of people judging. What's going through your mind?
It's exactly
There's a
where
lot
I am.
happening there. So
it's because one, I'm trying to be cognizant of the time, and we're running up almost an hour. So that is one thing. But
of course,
the thing that I was thinking is, I'm lucky enough that I've done a lot of introspection in my life, so I'll never be burned out because I recognize the sign beforehand. And this is the state that I am right now. Like I was telling you before the podcast, I am on a sick leave from work right now, exactly because of the reasons you're talking about right now. I know that I'm not doing what I should be doing, and it's creating this, there's no doubt, I know, it's just I need to figure out how to do what I'm supposed to do, and I need the time to sit down and actually listen to what I'm being told and take time to absorb it and take it for what it is, not try to make it mean something that it doesn't mean, just to sit, take it in, and take a decision from there. So your story that you just told really, really hits home, because I'm right now at that first job you had just before you got a burnout. So I'm there. I'm lucky enough that I've done a lot of work beforehand so that I can recognize that I'm there. I don't want to take another job. I just need to figure out what I'm supposed to do next. And somehow it has to do with me doing the type of stuff that we're doing right now. I'm supposed to be vulnerable. I'm supposed to for some reason record it and show it to people so that they can learn that it's okay to feel the way I feel right now. I don't have a lot. I've been, for the past 2, 3 weeks, I've been having really, I've had bad times. I won't lie to you, but it's not in a way where I'm going to be depressive. I'm not. I'll never be depressive because I recognize that those emotions, good or bad, I need to live them.
Mhm.
I need to reflect on them. I need to see how they feel. I just need to let them be and let them go once they're done. But I need to let them be, which I've never took the time to do, or I always prevented myself from doing in the past.
Mhm.
So it's just a very interesting time. What you're saying hits home, and I'll have to reflect some more after the podcast because this is exactly where I am right now. And I know that I met you at a very strange time, but I met you at that time for a specific reason, and I'm fully aware of it. So I'm recognizing all of that as it's happening, and one of the one of the things that I've been asking a lot recently is consciousness, to be able to be conscious 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in every single action that I pose, that I know why I'm doing them, and not just be a reaction, be a conscious reaction. This is where I am at right now. It is a very hard thing to do, though, I gotta say. This is not an easy thing, but
So
this is where I'm at.
be patient with yourself too.
Oh yeah, that's something I'm not. I really, I think I'll finish on that, but I always think about I don't remember where I got the story from, but it's a man that asks God for patience. God tells him, "I can't give you patience, but I can put you in a situation where you'll need to become patient." So I always tend to think. I've been thinking about that a lot recently because this is exactly where I am right now. When I would be working 12, 14 hours a day. Now for the past couple of weeks I haven't been working at all. I've been playing guitar, reading, doing a few podcasts, but to me that's not I'm not working when I'm doing a podcast. That to me is what I love to do. So yeah, I'm being patient with myself right now.
Good. Good. Patience and forgiveness of self. Those are
Yeah,
key to the journey.
I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Um, I got a feeling we might have to do this again because this was barely touching the subject, it seems like. But for now, I think I'll let it be because it's been almost an hour, and the attention span of most people doesn't go past an hour. I know
Yeah.
mine doesn't either. So
No
uh,
problem.
I will thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
An honor to be on your journey.
Thank you very much.